welcome to the Young Lions Fiction Award. We're celebrating this year 15 years of the Fiction Award, honoring extraordinary young writers and the best in contemporary fiction. It's wonderful to have you all here tonight. I think you've sold the place out. Want to welcome in particular the co-founders of the Fiction Award, Ethan Hawke, Hannah McFarland, Rick Moody, Jennifer Rudolph Walsh. Thanks to the Readers Committee who selected our 5 finalists, Cressida Laishon, the fiction editor of The New Yorker and chair of the Readers Committee. Thanks, of course, to the judges who selected our winner, Ayanna Matthias, Rebecca Mead, and Paul Yoon. Our co-chairs of this evening, Aziz Ansari, Nick Brown, Sloan Crossley, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Leandra Medine, Indra Rockefeller, and Jenny Slate. And also, of course, thanks to our corporate sponsors, supporters, Bookspan, ICM Partners, Signature Bank, Tudor Watch, and our media associate, New York Magazine. Takes a village. Thank you to the host committee of the Fiction Award benefit and everyone who supported tonight's events, and for your ongoing commitment to the emerging writers and their continued support of the New York Public Library. Tonight we celebrate innovation in fiction, and it's so appropriate that we do that here at the New York Public Library because for over 100 years, this has been the place where New Yorkers and all comers have come to learn, to read, and to create. The branch libraries have never been more full. The life of the mind is alive and well in New York. We've created after-school programs. We're teaching English and citizenship and computer skills and coding throughout the boroughs. Here in the Schwartzman Building, we're going to take the treasures out of the vaults, and we're going to put them on permanent display in the building for all New Yorkers and all tourists and all comers. We're going to create an education space here in this building because we want every school child and every teacher to come in and see what is possible in this amazing space. And we are being innovative ourselves. Some of you will have heard we've just launched a program to lend 10,000 households free Wi-Fi at home because there are close to 3 million New Yorkers who can't afford internet at home, and the library wants to make sure that they have access to all the world's information and eventually all the content of this building. We're all in this together. We couldn't be more grateful to you, to the Young Lions for your support. It's going to be a great evening. It's going to be a great party. Let me welcome now the host for our festivities. It is an honor to bring to the stage one of our greatest actors and a co-founder of the Young Lions Fiction Award, Ethan Hawke. You know him for his roles in Dead Poets Society, Reality Bites, and Before Sunrise. He's performed many screen and stage adaptations of classic works of literature, including Great Expectations, Hamlet, Macbeth, The Winter's Tale, Chekhov's The Cherry Orchard, and Ivanov. This year, we all saw him in Boyhood, that amazing film, and for that exceptional work, he was nominated for his 4th Academy Award. Most importantly, of course, Ethan is a founding member of the Young Lions, as well as the Young Lions Fiction Award. He was also the Library Lion honoree in the year 2010. He has been extraordinary and generous in his contributions to the cultural and literary communities, and we are absolutely thrilled to have him here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ethan Hawke.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be here tonight. This is the 15th anniversary of this award, and it's amazing to me that this much time has gone by and that we're still here and that we're still doing it and that it's stronger than ever. I started this with Hannah McFarland, Rick Moody, Jennifer Rudolph Walsh. We sat in a room and we're talking about how difficult it is to get started as a writer, how much, literature is also a business. And when you don't sell a lot of books, when you don't have a name to sell a lot of books, you do need a community looking after you to say what matters. Now, obviously, this is not the only net, but it is a net. And the idea was to use this unbelievable, beautiful institution and its power and its weight and its significance to create just a little net underneath young fiction and to say, hey, it does matter, we do care. That was our goal. And I'm really, really proud that we're here. It sounds weird to say, but one of the great benefits of getting older is seeing life happen, obviously, and to see all these young people over the last few years, seeing them all excel. We have a bunch of wonderful nominees here tonight, and for 15 years now, we've been trying to just pick out books that we believe in, and to get to sit and walk through the bookstores and watch and see what's happening to all these authors that have passed and sat in these chairs has been really exciting. And I think that it is our obligation as New Yorkers and as people who care about literature to support these awards. It's for those of you not the nominees, like I've been nominated for some awards, and if you noticed when he introduced me, I'd never won anything. Right? And so I personally think the nominees are cooler than the winner. And I think it's a win-win situation, really. This has been my experience, that if you don't win, everybody here is going to come up to you and say, I secretly think you should have won, And they'll probably mean it. And over time, you'll only grow in their estimation because it gives you a little bit of humility. It's like you're good enough to get nominated, which is a big deal. But you didn't win, and damn it, you should have, right? And if you win, who cares what anybody says? You won, So it's win-win. That's my theory. I've spoken on that. And so the nice way of saying it is, for you nominees, it's an emotional donation, right? If we don't have awards and things like that, all anybody cares about is what makes money. It's another way besides finance. It's another criteria to use to judge something. And this is a great institution, and they work really, really hard to cast a very wide net and support young people. And it has been an absolute honor to be a part of it, and I'm just glad we're here tonight. So that's my little talk. And I thank you. But the truth is, I wrote it down, and I even brought out my glasses, because I need glasses now to read it, but it's so dark I can't read it anyway. So I'm so pleased I got through it. Anyway, okay, the point is, if I could read my next thing, and I'm supposed to talk to you guys about, is they have these little cards, right, that you can make a donation on. And I do think that if you feel like it, if you're so inclined, if you say to yourself, you know what, I do care about literature, you know what, I do know that our society is only as good as our consciousness, and our consciousness evolves and, comes out of the art in a healthy expression of free ideas and innovation. I'm telling you, I have seen, and for a long time I was a juror on this thing, and I've watched people fight about these books and these ideas, and people in this community really support new ideas and real voices in literature, and it's really important. And it's always easy to give things, money to other organizations, but the arts are very important, and I want to speak on their behalf, and if you can little click on the card, then you can. Okay, I said that's my fundraising part, okay? It's all I can see is the bullet points, so you have to forgive me. Otherwise, that would make this seamless, I don't know. Okay. Right. The books nominated for this year's Young Lions Fiction Award are 4 novels and 1 collection of short stories. In the past year, they have already garnered several awards and have been recognized by the New York Times Book Review, the National Book Award, the Association for Writers and Writing Programs, the Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker, NPR, and many others. So, point being, these are no slouches we're among tonight, and we're proud to have them here with us. We are also going to be reading from everybody's books, and that makes it kind of fun. See, it's probably my only contribution to this award, because there were all these smart people. You can imagine being in a room with Rick Moody trying to design this thing. He was very opinionated about how everything worked, okay? And so he set the thing up very, very well. I contributed this idea that we would read from everybody's books because I'm a showman, and I think it's fun. And so my favorite part of the Academy Awards is when they show the clips from the movies, you know, like, and so this is the clips from the movies. That's how it goes. There it is. Okay. Now I'm supposed to introduce our readers for tonight's event. We have the star of Once Upon a Time, Jennifer Morrison. So, thank you. From Jersey Boys and Boardwalk Empire, we have Vincent Piazza. So thank you. And the star of Obvious Child and creator of Marcel the Shell, Jenny Slate. So we'll do the readings, and you can get to know everybody, a little taste of everybody's work. So Vincent, you're up first. Hit it.
The narrator of 1004 has enjoyed unlikely literary success, has been diagnosed with a potentially fatal medical condition, and has been asked by his best friend to help her conceive a child. In a New York of increasingly frequent superstorms and social unrest, he must reckon with his own mortality and the prospect of fatherhood in a city that might soon be underwater. Bookended by two storms, the novel projects our narrator into various plot lines and tells a story of overlapping possibilities. Here's a passage from 1004 by Ben Lerner. The city had converted an elevated length of abandoned railway spur into an aerial greenway, and the agent and I were walking south along it in the unseasonable warmth after an outrageously expensive celebratory meal in Chelsea that included baby octopuses the chef had literally massaged to death. We had ingested the impossibly tender things entire, the first intact head I had ever consumed, let alone of an animal that decorates its lair, has been observed at complicated play. We walked south among the dimly gleaming disused rails and carefully placed stands of sumac and smoked bush until we reached that part of the High Line where a cut has been made into the deck and the wooden steps descend several layers below the structure. The lowest level is fitted with upright windows overlooking 10th Avenue to form a kind of amphitheater where you can sit and watch the traffic. We sat and watched the traffic, and I'm kidding and I'm not kidding when I say that I intuited an alien intelligence, felt subject to a succession of images, sensations, memories, and effects that did not, properly speaking, belong to me. The ability to perceive polarized light, a conflation of taste and touch as salt was rubbed into the suction cups, a terror localized in my extremities, bypassing the brain completely. I was saying these things out loud to the agent, who was inhaling and exhaling smoke, and we were laughing. A few months before, the agent had emailed me that she believed I could get a strong six-figure advance based on a story of mine that had appeared in The New Yorker. All I had to do was promised to turn it into a novel. I managed to draft an earnest, if indefinite, proposal, and soon there was a competitive auction among the major New York houses, and we were eating cephalopods in what would become the opening scene. How exactly will you expand the story, she asked, a far look in her eyes because she was calculating the tip. I'll project myself into several futures simultaneously. I should have said, a minor tremor in my hand. I'll work my way from irony to sincerity in the sinking city, a would-be Whitman of the vulnerable grid.
Now I'm pleased to read from tonight's only collection of short stories. The Un-Americans is an exploration of families, communities, and characters shaped by the forces of history. The Un-Americans spans across the 20th century, transporting us to Tel Aviv, Kiev, and Brooklyn. In the following excerpt from The Quietest Man, a former dissident from communist-era Czechoslovakia needles his adult daughter for details on her newly commissioned play, which he worries will damage his reputation. The Characters struggle for footing in an uncertain world, hounded by forces beyond their control, with an intimate yet powerful voice. This is The Un-Americans by Molly Antipole. The news was waiting when I came home from class. My daughter had sold a play. Not the kind she'd put on as a girl with cardboard stage and paper bag puppets, but a real one, off-Broadway, with a set designer and professional actors, one of whom would portray me. Because this was, Daniela said in her breathless phone message, a play about our family. I set down my briefcase, stuffed with my students' blue books, and hit rewind. Then I called Katka. She's 24, I said. So when we were her age, we were living under a hussek, and we were not writing autobiographical plays. Your fatherly pride astounds me. I wondered how the wife I had known when Daniela was first born, the quiet, sunken woman who read the Czech newspapers in the library every morning and then wrote long letters to her mother in Prague, letters Katka had known would be swallowed by security, could have become this confident voice on the line. I'm just suggesting, I said, that Daniela may not know what she's getting into. Well, she's the one with the play. And you're an aging man who begins sentences with, when we were her age, I said. And after we hung up, I spent the rest of the evening calling Daniela, getting her voicemail each time. Finally, just before 11, she answered. Congratulations, I said. I hope I'm not waking you. No, now that people are actually going to see the thing, I'm trying to fix it up. So there was time for revising. Why don't I fly down this weekend to take you out, I said. Dinner, a show, whatever you want. What about July? My yearly New York trip. Well, I'll come then also. You don't want to be down here, she said. It's 100 degrees and pouring. I told her I'd fly her up to Maine then. It was humid here for May, too, but being on the water was almost pleasant. She'd never been up, and it was an easily 90-minute flight. We could make a leisurely weekend of it, driving along the jagged green coastline, stopping at Ocean Street Pier for taffy. They have this big machine, I said, where they'll make your own flavor right in front of you. Sorry, she said, and my heart flipped. Didn't she used to have a sweet tooth? I had no idea what she did like. I pictured her in her apartment on 103rd Street, a glum matchbook studio she had brightened up by painting it yellow and lining the sill with ferns. She would be on her bed doing ballet stretches, and her hair, long and thick and the color of cola, would be falling into her mouth. I've got a lot of work. So, I said, me too. I figured as much. Oh, this directness was new. The young artiste emboldened by a sail. I'm so proud of you, Daniela. I just want to celebrate, I said. And finally, her voice softened, and she said, okay. I knew I was laying it on thick, but what were my options? I pictured a velvet curtain being pulled open to reveal the stage. I saw that Queens backdrop, the low huddle of brick tenements with the metallic sparks of the city beyond. Under the spotlight sat a girl on her stoop, pudgy and pale, with dark brown bangs cut straight across. She was waiting for her father. It was his weekend. He should have arrived an hour ago. She waited and waited. The theater lights brightened as the afternoon got hotter, and when the mother returned from the third house she'd cleaned that day, she took one look at her daughter and led her inside. The mother, tired and tall in bleach-stained sweats and sneakers, called the father long distance as her daughter slumped on the sofa, still clutching her lavender suitcase with both hands. And when the father told the truth, that somehow the Saturday pickup had become Sunday in his mind, the whole strained story of their relationship was revealed in the way the mother drew in a breath to stop from yelling before ripping open a package of cold cuts and making their lunch. Thanks.
In 1980, the MacLeod family welcomes Trevor, their third child and the last to be born, to Alanfier, a small island off the west coast of Scotland. Life there on the eve of Trevor's birth is grim. The population, once in the hundreds, now hovers around 30. His parents stubbornly maintain a guest house despite their increasing trouble turning a profit, and a plague of rats threatens to wipe out the island's last remaining hopes. What Ends follows each of the MacLeods from Trevor's birth to the present day, each character struggling to navigate their fragile lives. Here's a passage from What Ends by Andrew Ladd. He tried to follow Mr. Lewis's advice, but avoiding trouble at the mainland school. But from his very first night, it seemed he'd managed to bungle it. Soon as George had left, Barry's bunkmate, the older boy named Tam, had looked him up and down and asked, "Do you smoke?" And just as Mr. Lewis had told him to, Barry had uttered a decisive no. Had told the other boy that he'd never even tried. "Why not?" asked Tam, with a scowl. "Are you sad or something?" Barry faltered, No. They're bad for you. My teacher told me so." "Is that a fact?" said Tam, smirking. "Well, fuck me. Thanks for the tip." "You're welcome," said Barry, still uneasy. Tam laughed and swaggered out the door, leaving Barry to sit there on his own for an hour, confused, before eventually shutting off the lights and going to bed early. And then in the playground during the next day's lunch break, he found himself surrounded. "This is him," explained Tam to a wall of other boys. "The new school nurse." The white light from the cloudy sky brought out the threatening lines in their faces. Barry noticed a gold stud glinting in one of their ears. "Anyway, Baz," said Tam, turning to face him, "since you're new, we thought we'd bring you a little welcome present." He reached into his pocket and took out the damp, contorted butt of a cigarette. "Thought maybe since you'd never smoked before, you'd want to try it." He held the butt forward. "Go on, big man. Take a drag." Barry stared at him. "No, thank you," he said, his voice quavering. I'm not in the mood." There was a roar of laughter from the other boys. "Not in the mood," said Tam, eyebrows shooting up. "Not in the mood. Well, that's a shame, see, because I've brought it just for you, and my feelings will be hurt if you don't take it." He took a step closer. "Don't you know it's rude to refuse a gift?" Barry edged backwards. His body felt like a shell, and he a tiny, diminishing light inside, not because of Tam, really, at least not entirely, but because of all the other indignities of the past few days. Bella's angry rejection and his parents' subsequent recriminations, and his stupid, stubborn tiff with Flora. He didn't know what he'd done to deserve any of it, but especially not this. The predatory speed with which Tam had turned on him seemed entirely unprovoked. Instinctively, he hugged his arms around his body as he continued to inch away, but by now the throng had seen enough and pounced, pinning him to the ground. Tam knelt down beside him. "We're only trying to be friendly," he said. And with a look of horrifying concentration, he pried open Barry's jaw and shoved the cigarette inside. The taste of mildew and smoky ash filled his mouth. "Now swallow it," said Tam, leaning back. Barry's eyes bulged. He tried not to watch. "I said, swallow it." So Barry did as he was told. A few tears finally working their way out and down the sides of his face. The filter stuck in his throat on its way down, and he gulped back another wave of nausea. The wet streaks on his skin prickled in the breeze. He stuck out his tongue to prove the butt was gone, and with a satisfied nod, Tam released him and stood up, the other boys following suit. Slowly, Barry began to sit up, and then his nausea surged again, and this time he couldn't hold it. Leaning quickly to one side, he threw up on the asphalt. A few drops of bile splattered on his hand. The cigarette butt bounced once and came to a rest at the edge of a puddle. Still heaving, he wiped his mouth against his sleeve. "Dearie me," said Tam, shaking his head. "It looks like you are right, Barry. They really are bad for you." And then he and the rest of his cronies had walked away laughing.
Over the course of several months, 8 people vanished from their homes in the same Japanese town, a single playing card found on each door. Known as the Narito disappearances, the crime has authorities baffled until a confession appears on the police's doorstep, signed by Oda Sotatsu, a thread salesman. Sotatsu is arrested, jailed, and interrogated, but he refuses to speak. Our narrator, a journalist named Jesse Ball, is grappling with mysteries of his own when he becomes fascinated by the case. In this passage, Ball interviews Mrs. Oda, the prisoner's mother, as she offers a telling glimpse about Sotatsu as a boy, a wildly inventive and poignant story. This is Silence Once Begun by Jesse Ball. Mrs. Oda, I will tell you a story about Jiro. I will explain why he cannot be trusted, not really at all. He used to have a game where he would pretend that he was a lord, and he would have his toys come before him and present him with cases to decide. He thought this was a very amusing game. I don't remember him ever playing it with anyone else, just alone. He would do different voices for the different toys. They did not need to be figures in order to bring a petition. His favorite spoon, for instance, was often coming, first in line, second in line, third in line. They would all argue and jostle, trying to be the first to speak to Jiro. And he would sit on a little stage he had made and argue with them or tell them what was what. Well, it would go like this. Jiro would say, "Who is this? And what have they to say?" And the little wooden box would be there in the front of the spoon, which was in front of the little cloth bird, and they would all be shouting and saying things, and Jiro would hold up his hand for silence. And there would be some quiet. And he would say they would all be taken and killed if they couldn't speak in turn. And the box would say, I don't know what it would say exactly. This was something that went on all the time, hundreds of times. Possibly the box had something it was always asking for and never getting, I don't know. But it might say, I don't like the spot where I'm put at night. Often other ones get placed in my head and it's uncomfortable. And Jiro would say, don't open your mouth again or I will have you killed. And he would send the box away. Then it was the spoon's turn. He would say that. He would say the same thing every time. No matter what was said to him, he would say that. Don't open your mouth again or I will have you killed. I doubt he remembers it. This was long ago, before he even went to school. Interviewer. But why do you say he can't be trusted? I'm sorry, I don't see, Mrs. Oda, that he thinks everyone should receive the same treatment, regardless of what they did or what they say, or that it doesn't matter what anyone does, it all ends up the same. Maybe he has changed some things about himself, but a boy is a boy. He is still the same one he was. Don't tell him I told you this, or do, I guess I don't know. She rooted around in her bag and brought out an old soup spoon. Mrs. Oda, this is it. I thought I would bring it and show you. For some reason, he would always have this spoon go on and on. It was like the spoon was trying the most to convince him, but it never did. I would sit in the next room and listen as he would play this game. I would listen to the whole game. Every time I listened from beginning to end. The things he would have them say you couldn't believe. But this spoon was always the one with the most elaborate excuses, the most long-winded little speeches. Always it was the same, though. Don't open your mouth or I will have you killed. I really pitied the spoon, so I still have it. Interviewer. It's a keepsake from Jiro's childhood. That's a good thing to have, and a good reason to have it. Mrs. Oda. Oh, no, I don't think of it that way. I rescued it from him. I don't think he cared about the spoon at all.
Without telling her family, 28-year-old Illyria takes a one-way flight to New Zealand, abruptly leaving her stable but unfulfilling life in Manhattan. Haunted by her sister's death and consumed by an inner violence, her growing rage remains expertly concealed. This discord between her inner and outer reality leads her to another obsession. If her truest self is invisible and unknowable to others, is she even alive? A story full of insights in the face of love, loss, and danger. This is Nobody Is Ever Missing by Catherine Lacey. I sat on a curb in Takaka for a long time, trying to think clearly about mixed feelings. Being alone was what I wanted. Being alone was not what I wanted. I didn't want to want anything. I wanted to want everything. I wanted to want a regular life, the usual husband, the usual apartment, the usual streets, sidewalks, noises, and so on, but I had left it. I had gone elsewhere. That was the right decision, I believed, except when I didn't, which was often, and both often and rarely. I sat on the curb in Takaka and thought these things. A tremendous amount of my brain was filled with noticing new things out here where nothing was familiar. Buildings, types of cars, types of people, accents, plants, packaged food items. Before I left, my brain never had to register my bedroom, my husband, mailbox, apple core, alarm clock, walls. My brain just said, to those things because the brain lets you keep going, keep not seeing your same walls, underwear, husband, doorknobs, ceiling, husband. A brain can be merciful in this way, sparing you in the monotony of those monotonies. They're pitiful, cozy. A brain lets all the bored-filled days shrink like drying sponges until they're hard and unforgiving. At the same time, I missed my ceiling. I missed how the drywall by the bathroom was uneven. I missed hearing the door open, hearing the door close, knowing a familiar body was in the other room, moving around, going about itself. I walked into the library, and the library smelled like every library I'd ever been in, and Dewey Decimals were on all the spines, the same tiny font, tiny numbers, and I thought for a moment that there actually were things you could count on in this world, until I realized that the most dependable things in the world are not of any significant use to any substantial problems. I left the library after some time and thought I should maybe bring some groceries or something to Werner's, and I tried to determine if I should hitch again, but I didn't want to explain myself to anyone, and I thought if I heard someone call me brave one more time, I might rip off my own thumb and not even bother to stop the blood from staining their upholstery. I bought some pears and cashews and canned beans while thinking about whether a person could be physically capable of tearing off their own thumb, and the specifics of that thought kept me company on the long walk to Werner's place. When I found him standing shirtless in his side yard, I was holding the scrap of paper he'd written his address on that night in New York. So I let my backpack thud off me, and I handed the scrap of paper to him for lack of anything else to do with it. Ah, yes. That's where we are. He smiled, and I smiled, but only a very little. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's give a round of applause for all our finalists. And thank you to our readers, Jennifer, Vincent, and Jane. Thank you guys for being here. This is, yeah, right. This is from Jadrian. Okay. And I would like to recognize the 5 finalists for the Young Lions Fiction Award: Molly Annapole, Jesse Ball, Catherine Lacey, Andrew Ladd, and Ben Lerner. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. And I also really want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting this event and being here tonight. It really means a lot, and it really is exciting. As somebody who's gotten, for 15 years, I've gotten the 5 books that were nominated every year. It's been so exciting to read these books and to watch this new generation of writers every year, and to keep hearing these stories and keep hearing these ideas as new stories need to be told. So thank you guys all. All right, it's my job now is to introduce the winner of this year's Young Lions Fiction Award, and the winner is Molly Annapole. So thank you. Molly. Okay, so we...
Oh, thank you so much, Ethan, for that introduction. And I remember when I first heard about the Young Lions Fiction Award, it was back in 2001, and I was just starting to write stories then. And the idea that I would one day publish a book, let alone be awarded this prize, just felt so pie in the sky. The Young Lions Fiction Award has supported so many of the contemporary writers whose work has been both a model and an inspiration for me. And to now be on a list that includes these people is just such an unbelievable honor. And so I'd like to begin by offering my enormous thanks to the Young Lions Reading Committee for believing in my book, and to the founders, organizations, and administrators that make this award possible. Thank you to the fiction judges, Ayanna Mathis, Rebecca Mead, and Paul Yoon, all of whom took precious time away from their own writing to consider mine, and I appreciate that immensely. Thank you to Vincent Piazza, Jennifer Morrison, and Jenny Slate, and to Ethan Hawke for his dedication to this award and for reading my work so beautifully tonight. And, and I'm also just so honored to be here with writers as amazing as Catherine, Ben, Jesse, and Andrew. Huge thanks to my editor, the wise and insightful Jill Bialowski, my generous and inspiring agent, Bill Clegg. I want to see you guys, but it's so dark. My sharp and compassionate publicist, Erin Sineski-Lovett, the incredibly supportive Bill Rusin, and everyone else at Norton and at the Clegg Agency. I just feel so lucky to get to work with such an amazing and wonderful group of people. And finally, my thanks to Tony Marks and to everyone else at the New York Public Library and the Young Lions program for awarding my book such an incredible prize. I'm just so honored to have my book recognized in this way, and by an organization that I respect so deeply is extraordinarily meaningful and inspiring. So thank you.
This is yours. All right, yeah, very good. Don't go anywhere. And now we want to invite all the nominees up because we have a prize for everybody. This is one of, everybody gets a check, so that's good. So come on up for your check and we get a good picture. We challenge you all to write better books next year. It's not good enough. I think we're supposed to do some kind of photo opportunity, and then we're supposed to party. I know I'm supposed to say that for those of you that bought tickets, the party, where's the party, Jake? The party's upstairs, and for those of you that want to buy tickets, you can go upstairs and buy them. It's not a big deal, right? Did I do everything I was supposed to say? Okay, well, why don't we all get our picture taken, And let's get in the line, everybody in the line. We're going to get in line. What's that? All right, so God bless the Young Lions and the New York Public Library, and let's keep the books coming, and let's go party. Thank you very much. Right? Okay.